My phone buzzed for the 7th time during Professor Mitchell's lecture on structural design. I silenced it again, trying to focus on the blueprint projected on the screen at the Boston Architectural College. But the vibrations kept coming, insistent and angry. Something was wrong. I grabbed my bag and slipped out of the lecture hall, my heart already racing. The moment I stepped into the corridor, I checked my phone. 12 missed calls. All from my father. My hands shook as I called him back. "Elena!" His voice cracked. "You need to come home. Now." "Dad, what's—" "Just come home." The line went dead. I ran. The subway ride to Alston felt endless. Every stop stretched like hours. By the time I reached our apartment building, the sun had set, casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalk. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my architectural portfolio banging against my hip. The door was unlocked. That was the first sign. I pushed it open slowly. "Dad?" The living room looked like a hurricane had torn through it. Couch cushions slashed open, drawers emptied onto the floor, picture frames shattered. And in the center of it all sat my father, Robert Hayes, 52 years old, and looking 20 years older. Blood dripped from his split lip onto his wrinkled shirt. Oh my God. I dropped my bag and rushed to him. "What happened? Did someone break in? We need to call the police." "No!" He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "No police. Elena, sit down. You're bleeding." "Sit down." I'd never heard that tone from him before. Cold, defeated, terrified. I sat. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, smearing blood across his knuckles. For a long moment, he just stared at the wall, at the empty space where my mother's painting used to hang. The one she'd done of the Boston Harbor at sunset. "I did something terrible," he finally said. "Something I can't take back." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "I used to work for them, the Sterling organization. I was their accountant for 5 years. Kept the books clean, moved money around. It was good pay, and I told myself it was just numbers on a screen. Nothing real. The Sterling organization? The name sounded familiar, whispered in news reports about organized crime in Boston. "Dad, you worked for the Mafia?" He flinched. "I needed the money after your mother died. The medical bills, the funeral costs. Then the gambling started. Just small bets at first. Horses, cards, sports. But it got worse. I kept losing, and I kept betting more, trying to win it back. I felt sick. How much? Over 3 years I stole from them. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there. I was careful, covered my tracks. But last week, I tried to take 200,000. I falsified documents, changed some numbers in the ledgers. I thought I could disappear, take you with me, start over somewhere else. $200,000? My voice came out as a whisper. They ran a routine audit. Found everything, all of it. He looked at me then, tears streaming down his face. "I owe them $850,000, Elena. Every penny I stole plus interest." The room tilted. $850,000. An impossible sum. A life-destroying sum. "The apartment Mom left me," I said slowly. "The one in Cambridge. You said you were renting it out. I sold it 6 months ago. Got $400,000 for it. That's why I only owe $850 instead of over $1 million. My mother's apartment. My inheritance. The place where she'd taught me to draw. Where we'd spent Sunday mornings making pancakes and planning my future. He'd sold it to cover gambling debts." I stood up, legs trembling. "You sold my mother's apartment to pay for your mistakes?" "I had no choice." "You had every choice. You chose to gamble. You chose to steal. You chose to—" A knock at the door cut me off. 3 sharp raps, perfectly spaced. My father went pale. "They're here." "Who's here?" "Elena, listen to me. Stay quiet. Let me handle this. Don't say anything. Don't promise anything, just—" The door opened. I'd forgotten I left it unlocked. 2 men entered. The first was huge, shoulders nearly as wide as the doorframe, with a shaved head and cold eyes. The second was older, maybe late 30s, with gray streaking through his dark hair, and an expensive suit that looked out of place in our shabby apartment. The older man surveyed the destruction with mild interest, before his gaze settled on my father. "Robert, You look terrible. Vincent. I told you, I need more time. Time? Vincent's voice was pleasant, almost friendly. That made it worse. You've had 3 years of time. 3 years of stealing from Mr. Sterling while he trusted you to keep his business running smoothly. Do you know what happens to people who betray that trust? My father said nothing. Vincent's eyes shifted to me. You must be Elena, 18 years old, student at the Boston Architectural College, Dean's List last semester. Very impressive. Ice flooded my veins. They'd investigated me. Leave her out of this, my father said. Oh, but she's already in it. Vincent pulled an envelope from his jacket and dropped it on the coffee table. Mr. Sterling is a reasonable man. He's giving you 48 hours to pay what you owe. $850,000. Cash. I don't have that kind of money. Then I suggest you find it. Because if you don't... Vincent smiled, and it was the most frightening expression I'd ever seen. Well, Mr. Sterling doesn't like loose ends. You understand. They left as quietly as they'd arrived. I stared at the envelope on the table, at my father's shaking hands, at the wreckage of our lives scattered across the floor. 48 hours, I said. Can you get it? Borrow it from someone? Take out a loan? Who's going to loan me nearly $1 million? He laughed, a broken sound. I'm a gambling addict who just stole from the mob. Banks won't touch me. Friends won't return my calls. We have nothing left to sell. Then what do we do? He looked at me with hollow eyes. I don't know. I didn't sleep that night. While my father passed out from cheap whiskey on the couch, I sat at my laptop researching the Sterling organization. The articles were carefully worded, full of alleged and suspected. But the truth was clear enough. Dominic Sterling, 32 years old, had run Boston's most powerful crime syndicate for over a decade. Real estate, construction, shipping, legitimate businesses fronting for darker operations. But what caught my attention was a smaller article about Adrian Volkov, a rival looking to expand his territory. The piece mentioned tensions, whispers of war, federal investigations circling closer. An idea formed. Terrible and desperate and completely insane. But it was an idea. At 8 a.m, I showered, dressed in my best interview clothes, and took the subway downtown. The Sapphire nightclub didn't open until evening, but I'd read that Sterling kept an office on the second floor. The front door was locked. I knocked until a massive security guard opened it. We're closed, he grunted. I need to speak with Dominic Sterling. He doesn't take walk-ins. Tell him it's about Robert Hayes. Tell him his daughter is here with a proposal. The guard studied me for a long moment, then spoke into a radio, a conversation I couldn't hear. Finally, he stepped aside. Second floor, last door on the right. My heels clicked against marble floors as I climbed the stairs. Everything about this place screamed money and power. Even closed, even empty. The Sapphire radiated danger. The last door on the right was slightly open. I knocked anyway. Come in. I pushed the door open and stopped breathing. Dominic Sterling sat behind a massive desk, signing documents with a fountain pen. He wore a black suit, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, revealing a gold chain against his tanned skin. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, blue eyes that lifted to meet mine with casual disinterest. He was the most attractive man I'd ever seen. He was also going to decide if my father lived or died. Elena Hayes. He set down his pen. You have your mother's eyes. She was a talented artist, from what I understand. Sold one of her paintings at auction 3 years ago for $60,000. He'd researched my family. Of course he had. I want to make a deal, I said, forcing my voice steady. A deal. A smile played at the corner of his mouth. How enterprising. What exactly do you think you have that I want? I'll work for you, whatever you need. I'm good with numbers. I can learn your business. I'll do anything to pay off my father's debt. He leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a particularly interesting insect. Anything? That's a dangerous word, Elena, especially in this office. Heat rushed to my face. I know what you meant. And I appreciate the offer, truly. But I already have accountants, assistants. and people who do anything for the right price. What I don't have, he stood, walking around the desk with predatory grace. What I need right now is something you might actually be able to provide. He stopped inches from me. This close, I could smell expensive cologne and see the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Adrian Volkov is using your father's betrayal to destabilize my operations. He plans to leak evidence to federal investigators, painting me as careless and weak. He's also pressuring conservative factions within my organization who think I need to settle down, prove I'm serious about legacy and succession. His fingers caught my chin, tilting my head up. You know what would solve both problems? I couldn't speak. A wife. Young, beautiful, completely innocent. The daughter of a man I showed mercy to instead of killing. It shows strength and compassion simultaneously. It neutralizes Volkov's blackmail and satisfies the old guard. My heart hammered against my ribs. You want to marry me? For 5 years. You live in my home, appear at my side for public events, play the role of devoted wife. In exchange, your father's debt disappears. He gets treatment for his gambling addiction at a private facility. And you get to finish your degree on my dime. That's insane. That's the offer. You have until midnight to decide. And if I say no? His hand dropped from my chin. He returned to his desk, picked up his pen, and went back to signing documents as if I'd already ceased to exist. Then your father dies. Probably within the week. Painfully. I stumbled out of that office, out of the Sapphire, into the bright Boston afternoon. My phone buzzed. A text from Lydia asking about study group. Normal life. The life I'd had this morning before everything shattered. I went home. My father was still on the couch, hungover and miserable. I'm going out, I told him. I'll be back later. I walked through the city for hours, trying to make sense of impossible choices. Marriage to a criminal. 5 years of my life sold to save a father who'd already sold my inheritance. But he was still my father, and I'd already lost my mother. At 10 that evening, I returned home to find the door kicked in and 2 men holding my father down, while a third drove his fist into my father's stomach. Again. Again. Stop! I screamed. They didn't stop. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed the number Vincent had left. He answered on the first ring. I accept, I gasped. Tell Dominic Sterling I accept his offer. I'll marry him. Just make them stop. Silence. Then, they'll be gone in 2 minutes. The line went dead. True to his word, the men released my father and left without a word. He collapsed on the floor, coughing blood, and I knelt beside him. My decision made, my future sold, my life forever changed by the price of my father's mistakes. 3 days after I'd agreed to marry Dominic Sterling, I sat in his attorney's office signing away 5 years of my life. The contract was 12 pages long. Single-spaced. Legal jargon that made my architecture textbooks look like children's books. The attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia, explained each clause in a monotone voice that suggested she'd done this 100 times before. Clause 7. Fidelity. Both parties agreed to maintain the appearance of a monogamous relationship. Any public displays of infidelity will be considered breach of contract. Clause 11. Public appearances. Mrs. Sterling agrees to attend all designated social functions, charity events, and business dinners as requested by Mr. Sterling with reasonable notice provided. Clause 15. Termination. This marriage contract cannot be dissolved before the completion of 5 years except in cases of death or mutual written agreement by both parties. 5 years. I'd be 23 when this ended. If it ended. Dominic sat across from me, reading something on his phone, barely paying attention. He'd already signed his copy. A gold pen rested beside his hand, the same one he'd been using when I first walked into his office. Do you have any questions? Patricia asked. I had 1,000 questions. None of them were about the contract. No, I said. I signed my name 13 times. Elena Hayes. Soon to be Elena Sterling. The ink was still drying when Dominic stood. Vincent will drive you home. Pack what you need. Someone will collect the rest later. Wait, today? I'm moving in today? The contract is signed. You're my wife as of... He checked his watch. 20 minutes ago. Judge Morrison signed the marriage certificate this morning. I stared at him. We're already married? Legally, yes. Publicly, we'll announce it next week after you've been properly prepared. Any other questions? My hands clenched in my lap. When do I get to say goodbye to my father? Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite sympathy, but close. He was transferred to a rehabilitation facility in Cape Cod this morning. You can write to him once he's settled. Now, shall we? The drive to Beacon Hill took 20 minutes through afternoon traffic. Vincent drove in silence while I stared out the window, watching my old life disappear behind us. The cramped apartment in Alston, the campus I'd walked 100 times, the coffee shop where Lydia and I studied. All of it fading into memory. The Sterling mansion sat on a tree-lined street that looked like something out of a historical film. 4 stories of red brick and white columns, surrounded by an iron fence that probably cost more than my entire education. Vincent pulled through gates that opened automatically. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sterling," he said. The first words he'd spoken since we left the attorney's office. The title made my skin crawl. A woman in her 50s met us at the door. Severe gray hair pulled into a bun. Kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I'm Margaret, the house manager. Mr. Sterling asked me to show you around." I followed her through rooms that belonged in magazines. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that was probably worth more than my father's debt. The living room could have fit 3 of our old apartment. The kitchen looked like something from a cooking show. 8 bedrooms total, Margaret explained as we climbed the grand staircase. "Mr. Sterling's suite is on the 3rd floor. Yours is here on the 2nd. She opened a door to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire living space back home. A king-sized bed with silk sheets, a sitting area by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Common, a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Your closet." Margaret opened another door. Empty racks stretched along 3 walls. "Mr. Sterling has arranged for a stylist to visit tomorrow. You'll need appropriate attire for upcoming events." "This is my room?" I asked. "Just mine?" "Yes." "Mr. Sterling felt you'd prefer your own space initially. He's quite considerate in his own way." "Considerate?" "Right. The man who'd bought me like property was considerate." Margaret left me to unpack my 2 small suitcases. They looked pathetic in that enormous closet. A few pairs of jeans, some t-shirts, my one nice dress that I'd worn to my mother's funeral. I hung them up anyway, trying not to think about how this was my life now. A knock at my door an hour later made me jump. "It's just me," a female voice called. "Can I come in?" I opened the door to find a woman about my age, maybe a few years older, with blonde hair and striking blue eyes. She wore designer clothes and an expression of open hostility. "So you're the one my brother bought." "Brother." This was Sophia Sterling. "I'm Elena," I said. "I know who you are. Daughter of a thief and a gambler. 18 years old. Probably never worked a real day in your life. And now you're living in luxury because my brother needed arm candy." She walked past me into the room, examining everything with a critical eye. "Let me guess. You think this is all romantic? Swept off your feet by a powerful man? I think your brother gave me an impossible choice, and I took the option that kept my father alive." That made her pause. She turned to look at me. Really look at me. "At least you're not completely stupid. Good. You'll need that. Why are you here? To warn you. Don't fall for the nice house and the expensive gifts. Don't think you're special. And whatever you do, don't get in the way of actual family business." She walked to the door, then stopped. "Also, there's a dinner in 6 days, some charity thing. You'll need to look perfect and act like you've been in love with my brother for months. Margaret will arrange for someone to teach you how to pretend." She left without waiting for a response. I stood alone in my gilded cage, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The next 3 days blurred together. Margaret introduced me to Patricia, not the attorney, but an image consultant who spoke in clipped sentences and examined me like a sculpture that needed fixing. Posture. Always keep your shoulders back. You represent the Sterling name now. When someone asks how you met, you say it was at an art auction 8 months ago. He was bidding on a piece by your mother. You got into an argument about the value of modern art. He asked you to dinner. Love at first fight. Never drink more than 2 glasses of wine in public. Never discuss politics, religion, or Mr. Sterling's business. Smile, nod, and redirect to safe topics like architecture or charity work. They took away my phone, the one I'd had since high school. Gave me a new one with a new number. Security purposes, Vincent explained when he handed it over. I tried calling Lydia. The phone wouldn't connect. Only approved contacts, Vincent said. We'll add your friend in a few days once you're settled. Settled. As if I could ever settle into this life. I started my commute back to the Boston Architectural College on the 4th day. 2 security guards drove me in a black SUV, one sitting in the front, one following in a second vehicle. They wore normal clothes, but I could see the guns under their jackets. My classmates stared. Elena, Lydia caught me after lecture, her eyes wide. Where have you been? Your phone's been disconnected, you missed 3 days of class, and now you show up with bodyguards? I'd rehearsed this lie a dozen times with Patricia. It still tasted wrong. I got married, I said. Her mouth fell open. You what? His name is Dominic. We've been dating for a while, but keeping it quiet. It happened fast, I know, but Elena, you never mentioned anyone named Dominic. You never went on dates. You studied every weekend. How could you have been secretly dating someone for months? It was complicated. He travels a lot for business. What business? Real estate. Look, can we talk about this later? I really need to catch up on the work I missed. She looked hurt, confused, and suspicious all at once. But she nodded. Okay. Yeah, later. I hated lying to her. Hated that this was my life now. That evening, Dominic summoned me to dinner. Not a request. A summons delivered by Margaret. The dining room could have seated 20 people easily. He sat at the head of an absurdly long table, reading documents while eating. I took the seat to his right, unsure of the protocol. How was your first day back at school? He asked without looking up. Fine. And your friend believed the cover story? Not really. But she didn't push. He set down his papers and actually looked at me. In the chandelier light, his eyes were impossibly blue. You'll need to be more convincing at the gala this weekend. Everyone there will be watching, looking for cracks in the story. Maybe if I understood why we're doing this, I could sell it better. You know why? I told you in my office. You told me Adrian Volkov is using my father against you. But why marry me specifically? You could have hired an actress, found someone who actually wants this life. He studied me for a long moment, then pushed his plate aside. Adrian was going to use your father as a federal witness. The evidence Robert stole, combined with his testimony, could have destroyed half my operations. Marrying you neutralizes that threat. It shows I've forgiven the Hayes family, brought you into mine, makes your father useless as a witness. And the conservative factions you mentioned? Old men who think I'm too young, too reckless. They want stability, legacy. A wife provides that. Specifically a wife from outside our world. Someone clean. He stood, walking around the table to where I sat. You have no criminal connections, no leverage against me, no reason to betray me except to save your father, who I now control through you. The logic was cold and perfect, and made me feel like a chess piece. Is there anything else? He asked. When do I get to talk to my father? When he's clean. Not before. He turned to leave, then paused. The event is black tie. Your dress will be ready tomorrow. Wear your hair down. He left me alone at that enormous table, surrounded by luxury I didn't want, trapped in a marriage that wasn't real, wondering if I'd ever feel like anything more than property again. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, the house too big. Around 2 a.m, I heard shouting from somewhere above me. I grabbed a robe and crept into the hallway. The shouting had stopped, but I could hear movement, urgent voices. Following the sound, I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, Dominic's floor. His bedroom door was open. Inside, I could see Vincent and another man I didn't recognize working on Dominic's arm. Blood stained his white shirt, soaking through a makeshift bandage. Our eyes met across the room. For the first time since I'd met him, Dominic Sterling looked human, vulnerable, in pain. Go back to your room, Vincent ordered, but Dominic raised his good hand. Let her stay. I stood in the doorway, watching a private doctor stitch a bullet wound into my husband's arm, and realized that this marriage might kill both of us before 5 years were up. The navy blue gown felt like wearing liquid silk. Margaret had zipped me into it an hour ago, and I still couldn't stop touching the fabric, watching how it caught the light. The stylist had pulled my hair into an elegant twist with a few loose strands framing my face. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than a car hung from my ears. I looked like someone else in the mirror, someone who belonged at charity galas at the Boston Harbor Hotel. "You look beautiful," Margaret said from the doorway. "Mr. Sterling is waiting downstairs." Dominic stood in the foyer, wearing a black tuxedo that fit him like it had been painted on. His arm was in a sling under his jacket, hidden but not completely, the bullet wound from 3 nights ago. He looked up when I descended the stairs, and something flickered in his expression. Too fast to read, but it made my stomach flip. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." The drive to the hotel was silent, except for Vincent going over last-minute details from the front seat. Senator Williams will be there with his wife. They're considering supporting Sterling Development's bid for the waterfront project. Adrian Volkov is also on the guest list. Keep your distance, but don't appear rude. "Adrian will be there?" I asked. "He donates to the same charities," Dominic said. "Moving in the same circles is unavoidable. That's why this performance needs to be flawless." Performance. Right. That's all this was. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and hundreds of people in expensive clothes. A string quartet played something classical while waiters circulated with champagne. I'd never been to anything like this. Dominic's hand settled on the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd. "Smile. You're madly in love with me, remember?" I plastered on a smile that felt plastic. We made our rounds. Dominic introduced me to businessmen, politicians, society wives who looked at me with thinly veiled curiosity. Everyone wanted to know about the mysterious Elena Sterling, the woman who'd captured Boston's most eligible bachelor. I repeated the rehearsed story until it almost felt real. Art auction. Argument about modern art. Love at first fight. "How charming," said a woman dripping in pearls. "And where did you go to school, dear?" "Boston Architectural College. I'm in my 2nd year." "Architecture. How ambitious. Most girls your age are focused on, well, other things." The condescension was barely hidden. I kept smiling. Dominic's hand tightened on my waist. A warning or support, I couldn't tell. We were halfway through our 2nd circuit of the room when he appeared. Adrian Volkov was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'10", with blonde hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if not for the coldness in his gray eyes. He wore a white dinner jacket that made him stand out in a sea of black tuxedos. Dominic. He approached with a champagne flute in hand, smile wide and predatory. I heard rumors about a wedding. Didn't believe them until I saw the announcement. Adrian. Dominic's voice was perfectly neutral. "Enjoying the event?" "Immensely." Adrian's gaze shifted to me, lingering in a way that made my skin crawl. He took my hand and kissed it, his lips cold against my knuckles. "You must be the famous Elena. Dominic's kept you well hidden." "We preferred privacy," I managed. "Privacy. How quaint." He didn't release my hand. "Tell me, how does a college student end up married to Boston's most dangerous man?" "Adrian," Dominic said, his voice dropping into something dangerous. "I'm just curious. It's such a fairy tale. Girl from nowhere, swept off her feet. Almost like something arranged, wouldn't you say?" I pulled my hand back. "I'd say you don't know anything about our relationship. Perhaps not, but I know timing. Interesting how this marriage happened right when certain federal investigations were gaining traction. Convenient, wouldn't you say?" Dominic stepped between us, his injured arm hidden but his presence radiating threat. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." It wasn't a suggestion. Adrian smiled wider. "Of course. Congratulations to you both. I'm sure it will be a very successful arrangement." He walked away, leaving poison in the air behind him. "I need some air," I whispered. Dominic guided me to a balcony overlooking the harbor. The cool night breeze felt like salvation after the suffocating ballroom. "You did well in there," he said after a moment. I wanted to punch him. A short laugh escaped him. Actual amusement. That would have been entertaining, but not ideal for our image. We stood in silence, watching boats drift across the dark water. The city lights reflected on the surface like scattered stars. "He knows, doesn't he?" I said. "About the arrangement. He suspects. He can't prove anything." Dominic leaned against the railing, wincing slightly from his injured arm. "Adrian's power comes from creating chaos, exploiting weaknesses. That's why he mentioned the federal investigations. He wants us to know he's still a threat. How does this end? Wars like this? They end when one side surrenders or dies. Adrian won't surrender." The implications hung heavy between us. We returned to the gala. I smiled until my face hurt, made small talk with strangers, played the role of the loving wife, and through it all, I felt Adrian's eyes watching from across the room. The car ride home was quiet. Dominic stared out the window, lost in thoughts I couldn't read. "Thank you," he said as we pulled through the gates. "For tonight. You handled it better than I expected. Because you thought I'd crack under pressure. Because you're 18 years old, and this life would break most people twice your age." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "But you're stronger than you appear." Something in his voice made my breath catch. For a second, I saw past the cold mobster to the man underneath. The one who'd taken over a criminal empire at 19 after his parents were murdered. The one who carried burdens I couldn't imagine. Then the moment passed. "Good night, Elena," he said, disappearing into the house. I went to my room and stared at my reflection. Diamond earrings, silk gown, carefully styled hair. I looked like I belonged to this world. The illusion shattered when I tried to reach the zipper on my dress, and couldn't. I stood there for 10 minutes, twisting and straining until I finally gave up and called for Margaret. But it was Dominic who appeared at my door. "Margaret retired for the night," he said. "May I?" I turned my back to him, hyper-aware of his presence as he unzipped the dress. His fingers brushed my spine and I shivered. "Cold?" he asked. "No." He finished the zipper and stepped back. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. "Good night," he said again, softer this time. He left before I could respond. The next few days fell into a routine. Breakfast together, though Dominic usually read documents while eating. Then my 40-minute commute to campus with my security detail. Classes where I tried to focus on structural engineering instead of the fact that I was married to a criminal. Evening returns to the mansion where Dominic and I existed in the same space but different worlds. Lydia cornered me in the campus library on a Wednesday afternoon. "Okay, I've been patient. But you disappeared for days, showed up married to someone you never mentioned, and now you're dodging my calls. What's really going on?" I'd rehearsed lies with Patricia. But looking at my best friend, the person who'd been there when my mother died, who'd stayed up with me through finals and breakups and every crisis of my teenage years, the lies stuck in my throat. "It's complicated. That's not an answer, Elena. I can't explain it. Not here. Not now. But I need you to trust me." "Trust you? You're asking me to trust that suddenly marrying a stranger is normal? I'm asking you to be my friend, even when things don't make sense." She stared at me for a long moment, hurt and confusion warring on her face. Finally, she nodded. "Fine, but when you can talk about it, I'm here." She left, and I felt the weight of another relationship damaged by this arrangement. That evening, I found Dominic in his study. The door was usually closed, off limits, but tonight it stood open. He sat behind his desk, papers scattered everywhere, looking exhausted. "Can I come in?" I asked. He gestured to a chair. I sat, trying to find words. "I overheard something the other day. Vincent and another man talking about an intercepted shipment. Something about Adrian trying to sabotage your operations. You shouldn't be listening to those conversations. I live here. I can't help overhearing things." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Adrian's trying to cut off my supply lines. If he succeeds, it weakens my position with other families. Makes me look incompetent. Is it working? Not yet. But he's persistent." I thought about the cold calculation in Adrian's eyes, the way he'd spoken to me at the gala. He scares me. He should. He's killed more people than I can count. "Have you?" The question came out before I could stop it. Dominic looked at me with those impossibly blue eyes. "Yes." The simple honesty of it was somehow worse than any excuse would have been. "I should go," I said, standing. "Elena?" He stood too. I won't apologize for what I am, but I will keep you safe. That's not just the contract talking. You're under my protection now. Why does that matter? I'm just part of a business arrangement. Something flickered across his face. Is that what you think? Isn't it? He walked around the desk, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. If you were just business, I wouldn't care about keeping you safe. I'd care about keeping you useful. There's a difference. My heart hammered in my chest. What kind of difference? He raised his hand, fingertips barely grazing my cheek. For a second, I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to, which was insane. Then Sophia's voice cut through the moment. Am I interrupting? Dominic stepped back immediately. What do you need? Sophia stood in the doorway, looking between us with an expression I couldn't read. Vincent needs you. Something about the harbor shipment. He left without another word. Sophia walked into the study, examining me like a puzzle she couldn't solve. You know, when he first told me about this arrangement, I thought you were just another gold digger. Someone using our family's tragedy for personal gain. And now? Now I'm not sure what you are. She moved to the window overlooking the gardens. My brother doesn't let people in. After our parents died, he built walls so high nobody could reach him. But when you're around, those walls crack. Just a little. I don't understand. You will. She turned back to me. Just be careful. Men like my brother, men in this life, they destroy the things they care about. It's what they're good at. She left me alone in that study, surrounded by evidence of power and violence, wondering if I was starting to care about my captor, and whether that would be the thing that destroyed us both. Breakfast became my favorite part of the day, not because of the food, though Margaret's cooking was incredible, but because it was the only time Dominic seemed almost normal. He'd read the newspaper while drinking black coffee, occasionally commenting on something he found interesting. We'd talk about nothing important. Architecture projects, weather, Boston traffic. It felt domestic. Almost real. There's a property I want to show you, he said one morning, setting down his paper. If you're interested. What kind of property? A theater. Built in 1922. Abandoned for the last 15 years. South End location. Beautiful bones, terrible neglect. My architectural brain immediately perked up. Why show me? You mentioned wanting to work on historic restoration. I own several period buildings. This one needs someone who actually cares about preservation, not just profit margins. An hour later, we stood in front of a crumbling masterpiece. The facade still held traces of Art Deco glory, geometric patterns carved into limestone now covered in grime. Boarded windows, faded marquee, but underneath the decay, I could see what it had been. It's beautiful, I whispered. Dominic unlocked the front entrance. Inside was worse and better than I imagined. Water damage, collapsed ceiling sections, seats ripped apart by vandals. But the architecture remained. Soaring ceiling with plasterwork details, a stage that had hosted legends, balconies with wrought iron railings. I walked through the space, my mind already sketching restoration plans. The structural integrity of the main supports looks solid. You'd need to replace the roof entirely, restore the plasterwork, modernize electrical and plumbing while maintaining period accuracy. Could it be done? Absolutely. It would take time and money, but this place could be stunning again. I ran my hand along a carved pillar. Why did you buy it? Investment. But I never had reason to actually restore it. He watched me examine the space with something like amusement. If you create a proper restoration plan, I'll fund it. I turned to stare at him. You're serious? Completely. You need a project for your portfolio. I need this building renovated. It's practical. Practical. Right. Nothing to do with the way he was looking at me, like I was something more than a contracted wife. We spent 2 hours there. I took measurements, photos, notes. Dominic mostly watched, occasionally pointing out structural concerns or asking questions about my vision. It felt like the most normal thing we'd done together. Thank you, I said as we left, for showing me this. Don't thank me yet. The project will be brutal. But I was already planning, already dreaming of what that theater could become. That evening, he found me in the library surrounded by sketches. You work fast, he said. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I showed him preliminary drawings. If we restore the original Art Deco aesthetic, but modernize the infrastructure, it could be a premier venue again. Small productions, concerts, community theater. He studied my sketches with genuine interest. You have talent. I have passion. Talent is still developing. Passion's more important. He sat across from me, and for the first time, the distance between us felt comfortable rather than hostile. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why architecture? Most people find it boring. My mother used to take me to old buildings around Boston. She'd point out details nobody else noticed. Cornices, keystones, the way light hit certain windows at sunset. She said buildings were stories written in stone and glass. I traced one of my sketches. After she died, walking through historic neighborhoods felt like being close to her again. That's why you want to restore them, to bring back those stories. Something like that. He was quiet for a moment. My parents died in an ambush when I was 19. I was supposed to take over the business eventually, but not for years. Suddenly, I'm running an organization I barely understood, making life and death decisions, trying to hold together something built over 3 generations. I'd never heard him talk about his past. Not like this. That's why you seem tired all the time, I said softly. You've been carrying that weight for 13 years. Some days it feels heavier than others. He stood, and I thought the moment was over, but he paused. I trust you with this theater project, Elena. Don't make me regret it. Trust. From Dominic Sterling, that word meant everything. The next day, reality crashed back in. You need to learn to defend yourself, Dominic announced over breakfast. I know how to defend myself. You know how to throw a punch in theory. I'm talking about real defense. Weapons. I'm not shooting anyone. If someone tries to hurt you, you'll wish you had the option. He set down his coffee. Vincent will teach you. Basic firearms training, 3 sessions. Non-negotiable. I wanted to argue, but I remembered Adrian's cold eyes, the way Dominic had been shot, the violence that saturated this world. Fine, but I won't like it. You're not supposed to like it. You're supposed to survive it. Vincent took me to the mansion's basement firing range that afternoon. I hadn't known it existed. Ever held a gun before? He asked. No. Good. No bad habits to unlearn. He placed a handgun on the table. This is a Glock 19. Standard, reliable, relatively easy to handle. We'll start with basics. The weight of it in my hand felt wrong. Too heavy. Too real. Guns aren't toys, Vincent said. But they're not magic either. Just tools. Dangerous tools that require respect and knowledge. He taught me stance, grip, sight alignment, how to load and unload safely, where the safety was, how to check if a round was chambered. By the end of the first session, my hands shook and my head pounded. But I'd learned the fundamentals. You did well, Vincent said. Natural steadiness. That's rare. I don't feel steady. Nobody does at first. That's normal. We had 2 more sessions that week. By the 3rd, I could hit targets consistently at close range. Not perfect, but competent. Why are you doing this? I asked Vincent afterward. Training me, I mean. You could have assigned someone else. Because if something happens to you, it destroys him. Vincent cleaned the guns with practiced efficiency. Dominic doesn't let people in. When he does, he protects them absolutely. You're under that protection now. I'm just part of an arrangement. Vincent looked at me with something like pity. Keep telling yourself that. The attack came on a Thursday. I was returning from campus, my security detail following in their usual formation. We'd just turned onto Commonwealth Avenue near Boston University when the first shots rang out. My driver jerked the wheel. Get down! I hit the floor as bullets shattered the back window. Glass rained down. More gunfire, impossibly loud. The car swerved, mounted a curb, stopped hard against a building. Stay down. My guard, a man named James, shoved me lower. He was already on his radio, calling for backup, returning fire through the broken window. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just pressed myself against the floor and prayed. The gunfire intensified, then stopped. Sirens in the distance. Mrs. Sterling? James touched my shoulder. You hurt? I shook my head, still unable to speak. They're gone. Backup's here. We need to move you now. He pulled me from the car. I saw blood on the sidewalk, bullet holes in the vehicle, shattered storefronts. My legs wouldn't work right. Then Dominic was there, appearing like a ghost, his face pale and furious. He grabbed me, checking for injuries with frantic hands. I'm okay, I managed. I'm okay. You're bleeding. I looked down. A cut on my arm from flying glass, nothing serious. But Dominic looked at it like it was a mortal wound. Get her home, he ordered Vincent. Now. The drive back was a blur. Vincent drove while Dominic held me in the back seat, his arms wrapped around me like I might disappear. He didn't speak, just held me while I shook. At the mansion, he led me inside, upstairs, to his room, not mine, sat me on the bed and cleaned the cut on my arm with steady hands that contradicted the storm in his eyes. This is my fault, he said quietly. Adrian's escalating. He tried to kill you to get to me. I'm fine. You could have died. If James hadn't reacted as fast as he did, if they'd been better shots. He stopped, jaw clenched. I can't let that happen again. Dominic, if something had happened to you... He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I saw fear. Genuine fear. I wouldn't have been able to live with that. Why? I whispered. I'm just part of an arrangement, remember? Is that what you still think? His hand came up to cup my face. After everything, I don't know what to think. You confuse me. This whole situation confuses me. Then let me make it clear. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. You stopped being just an arrangement weeks ago. When he kissed me, it wasn't like the almost kiss in his study. This was certain, deliberate, real. His lips moved against mine with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. I kissed him back, all the tension and fear and confusion of the past weeks pouring into that moment. He pulled back, breathing hard. I shouldn't have done that. Why not? Because now I can't pretend this is just business. Because you deserve better than a life tied to someone like me. Because I kissed him again, cutting off his words. We stayed like that, wrapped up in each other, the outside world and all its violence temporarily forgotten. When we finally pulled apart, night had fallen. Dominic held me close, his heartbeat steady against my ear. Stay here tonight, he said. Not an order. A request. Okay. I fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than I had in weeks, not knowing that the real war was just beginning. I woke to find Dominic already dressed, speaking in low tones on his phone by the window. Morning light cut across his face, highlighting the exhaustion in his eyes. He'd barely slept. When he noticed I was awake, he ended the call. How do you feel? He asked. Like I was almost killed yesterday. I sat up, still wearing the clothes from the day before. What happens now? Now you get 3 guards instead of 2. Armored vehicle. New routes to campus every day. I'll suffocate. You'll be alive. He sat on the edge of the bed, his voice softening. I know you hate this, but Adrian declared war the moment he shot at you. Then end it. You're supposed to be powerful, right? Why can't you just... I stopped, not wanting to finish that sentence. Kill him? Dominic's expression was grim. I'm trying. But Adrian's smart. He stays mobile, surrounds himself with loyal men, never exposes himself to direct attack. Yesterday was him sending a message. What message? That he can reach you anytime he wants. That I can't protect what's mine. What's mine? The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in my chest. I'm not going to hide in this house, I said. I have classes, projects, a life. Then we adapt. But you don't leave this property without serious protection. I wanted to argue more, but the fear from yesterday was still too fresh. The sound of gunfire, the glass shattering, James bleeding as he shielded me. Okay, I whispered. He pulled me close, pressing his lips to my forehead. I won't let him hurt you again. The next few days felt like living in a bunker. 6 security guards rotated shifts. The mansion's already impressive security system got upgraded. I couldn't walk to the garden without someone watching. Sophia found me in the library on the third day, staring at sketches for the theater restoration, but unable to focus. "You look miserable," she said. "I feel like a prisoner. Welcome to the family business." She sat across from me, examining my drawings. "These are good. Thanks. I mean it. You have actual talent, not just rich girl hobbies." She set the sketches down. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Are you falling for my brother?" The directness shocked me into honesty. "I don't know. Maybe. Is that insane?" "Probably." She smiled. But it was sad. Dominic's a good man trapped in a terrible life. Our father groomed him from birth to take over. When he died, Dominic didn't have a choice. He just stepped into the role because someone had to. He told me about your parents. Did he tell you he blames himself? That he thinks if he'd been smarter, faster, better, he could have prevented their deaths? She looked out the window. He carries guilt like other people carry wallets. It's always there, weighing him down. Why are you telling me this? Because you're good for him. I've watched him these past weeks. He smiles more, seems lighter. You make him remember there's more to life than violence and power. She met my eyes. But this life will try to destroy that. It destroys everything good eventually. Before I could respond, Vincent appeared in the doorway. "We have a situation," he said. Dominic's study was full of men I didn't recognize. Maps spread across his desk, phones ringing, tension thick enough to choke on. "What's happening?" I asked from the doorway. Dominic looked up, frustration and something else in his expression. "You shouldn't be here. This is my house too. What's going on?" He gestured to the map. "Adrian's planning something. My sources say he's gathering forces, pulling in allies from New York. This isn't just about me anymore. He's making a play for territory. So what do? Hit him first. Hard enough that he can't recover." The room went quiet. Everyone looking at Dominic, waiting for orders. "I want to help," I said. "Absolutely not. Listen to me. Adrian operates out of that warehouse in Charlestown, right? The old naval building? How do you know that?" "I heard Vincent mention it last week. I looked it up. Public records show the building layout, original construction plans from 1918. I moved to his desk, pulling up images on my phone. "Look at the structure. Those old support beams, the way the roof system works. There are vulnerabilities." Dominic studied the images, then looked at me. "You're saying we can use the architecture against him?" "Exactly. The building has 3 exits. 2 are obvious. 1 is hidden in the original plans. If you block the obvious exits and he tries to escape through the 3rd, you'll know exactly where he'll be." Vincent leaned in, examining the plans. "She's right. We've been watching the front and side entrance. There's a 3rd route we missed." "How did you figure this out?" Dominic asked me. "It's what I'm trained to do. Read buildings, understand how they work. Adrian picked a historic warehouse because it's defensible. But old buildings have secrets." For a moment, Dominic just stared at me. Then he kissed me, hard and quick, in front of everyone. "You're brilliant," he said. "And dangerous." The plan came together quickly. Strike team, backup support, surveillance. Dominic would lead personally despite my protests. "I'm not sending my people somewhere I won't go myself," he said. "That's not how I operate." "Then I'm coming with you." "Not a chance. I know that building better than anyone. If something goes wrong, if the structure's compromised or the roots aren't what we expect, no." His voice was final. "You stay here with Sophia. That's not negotiable." We argued for an hour. He won. That night, I watched him prepare. Checking weapons, reviewing maps, speaking with Vincent about contingencies. He moved with practiced efficiency, a man who'd done this 100 times before. "Come back," I said when he was ready to leave. He cupped my face in both hands. "I always do. Promise me." "I promise." Then he was gone, and I was left with Sophia and 6 guards and the slowly ticking clock. The first hour was bearable. Sophia and I played cards, talked about nothing important, pretended we weren't terrified. The second hour dragged. No updates, just silence. By hour 3, I was pacing. Sophia tried to distract me but gave up. No news is good news, she kept saying. Then Vincent's call came through. Sophia answered, her face draining of color. What? I demanded. What happened? We lost contact with the team. 10 minutes ago, all radios went silent. My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means something went wrong. I grabbed my jacket. We're going. Elena, Dominic said, I don't care what he said. If he's hurt, if they need help, I'm not sitting here doing nothing. Sophia looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Vincent, bring the car around. We're going to Charlestown. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Sophia kept trying to reach Vincent's team but got nothing but static. By the time we reached the harbor near Charlestown, my hands were shaking. There, Sophia pointed. The command van. We pulled up next to a black van. Vincent was inside with 2 other men, all monitoring equipment that showed nothing but dead feeds. Any updates? Sophia demanded. Nothing. Complete communication blackout. Either they're all dead, or the building's blocking signals. Or Adrian was waiting for them, I said. He knew they were coming. Vincent swore. There's an informant. Has to be. Gunfire echoed from the warehouse district. Distant, but unmistakable. We need to get closer, I said. Too dangerous, Vincent replied. We wait for... An explosion lit up the night sky. Not massive, but enough to shake the ground. That came from the warehouse. Sophia breathed. I was out of the van before anyone could stop me, running toward the smoke. Sophia shouting my name behind me. Security trying to catch up. But all I could think was that Dominic was in there, possibly hurt, possibly dying. I rounded the corner and stopped dead. The warehouse was chaos. Smoke pouring from broken windows, men scattered across the loading area, some wounded, some fighting. And in the center of it all, I saw Dominic. He was on the ground, blood soaking through his shirt from a shoulder wound. 3 men closing in on him. He was still fighting, still shooting, but he was hurt and outnumbered. Adrian Volkov stood 20 feet away, gun aimed at Dominic's head, smile on his face. This is how it ends, Adrian called out. Any last words? I didn't think. I grabbed the gun from the security guard who'd caught up to me, the weight familiar from Vincent's training. I raised it, remembered my stance, controlled my breathing, and I fired. The shot went wide, hitting Adrian in the shoulder instead of center mass, but it was enough. He spun, gun flying from his hand, shock on his face. Dominic didn't waste the opportunity. He lunged, tackling Adrian to the ground. Chaos erupted again. Vincent's backup team rushed in. Someone pulled me back as the fighting intensified. I watched through smoke and confusion as Adrian's men retreated, carrying their wounded boss. Watched as Dominic struggled to his feet, bleeding but alive. Our eyes met across the battlefield. I'd just saved his life. The private hospital in Newton smelled like antiseptic and money. Dominic was in surgery for 3 hours while I sat in the waiting room, still covered in gunpowder residue, unable to stop shaking. Vincent paced. Sophia held my hand. Neither of them said what we were all thinking. I'd just shot a man. Not killed him, but close enough. You saved his life, Vincent said finally. Adrian would have executed him if you hadn't intervened. I shot someone. My voice didn't sound like mine. I actually pulled the trigger. And my brother is alive because of it. Sophia squeezed my hand harder. Don't fall apart now. But I was already falling apart. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the reality of what I'd done, what this life had turned me into. The surgeon finally emerged, still in scrubs. Mr. Sterling is stable. The bullet went through his shoulder, missed major arteries. He'll need physical therapy, but he'll recover fully. Relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. They let me see him an hour later. He was awake, pale, connected to monitors that beeped steadily. When I entered, his eyes tracked me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You were supposed to stay home, he said, voice rough. You were supposed to come back. I moved to his bedside. You almost died, but I didn't. Because you shot Adrian Volkov. Something like pride crossed his face. Vincent told me. Perfect shot under pressure. I was aiming for his chest, hit his shoulder instead. Close enough. He tried to sit up, winced, gave up. Come here. I moved closer. He caught my hand with his good one, pulling me down until I was sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for putting you in that position, for dragging you into this war, for all of it. I chose to come. I chose to shoot. Nobody forced me. You shouldn't have to make those choices. You're 18 years old. You should be worried about exams and parties, not whether your husband is going to die in some warehouse. Well, I married into the mob. Kind of comes with the territory. He laughed, then groaned from pain. Don't make me laugh. It hurts. Then stop saying stupid things. We stayed like that, hands linked, not speaking. Eventually, his breathing evened out and he slept. I stayed, watching monitors, counting heartbeats. Grateful he was alive. Vincent found me there at dawn. We need to talk, he said. Outside. In the hallway, he looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. Adrian escaped, wounded but alive. He fled Boston, probably to New York or Philadelphia to recover and regroup. So this isn't over. No, but it bought us time. His organization is fractured. 3 of his top men defected after seeing him lose control of the situation. He's weaker now than he's been in years. And Dominic will heal. But he's making changes, Elena. Big ones. Vincent studied me carefully. He's transferring control of the illegal operations to me, stepping back from that side of the business entirely. I stared at him. What? He wants out. Not completely, he still owns legitimate businesses, but the criminal side? He's done. Says he wants a different future. Because of me? Because of you. Because he realized he has something worth living for beyond power and revenge. Vincent's expression softened slightly. You changed him. Don't underestimate what that means. Dominic came home 2 weeks later. The shoulder was healing, but still painful. I'd moved completely into his room during his hospital stay, and neither of us suggested changing that arrangement. I took care of him, changed bandages, made sure he took medication, forced him to rest when he tried to work too soon. He was a terrible patient, stubborn and restless, but he let me help in a way that suggested he actually trusted me. Tell me about the theater project, he said one afternoon, while I was checking his stitches. You're supposed to be resting. I am resting. Talk to me about something other than my shoulder. So I did. I told him about my restoration plans, the challenges of maintaining historical integrity while modernizing infrastructure, my vision for the space once complete. You light up when you talk about it, he observed. Your whole face changes, because I love it. Architecture is the only thing that's ever made sense to me. Not the only thing. He caught my hand. Us. We make sense. We're a mafia boss and a college student forced into marriage. Nothing about us makes sense. And yet here we are. You taking care of me falling more in love with you every day. The words stopped my heart. You love me? Of course I love you. How could I not? You're brilliant and brave and beautiful. You shot a man to save my life. You challenge me, surprise me, make me want to be better than I am. I kissed him, careful of his injury, trying to communicate through touch what I couldn't put into words yet. When I pulled back, his eyes searched mine. You don't have to say it back. I know this situation is complicated. I love you too, I interrupted. I think I have for a while now. I just didn't want to admit it. Why not? Because it makes this real. Because if I love you, then losing you becomes unbearable. Because he kissed me again, deeper this time, and we stopped talking entirely. Life settled into something almost normal over the next month. Dominic recovered fully, started physical therapy. I returned to campus full-time, though security remained tight. The theater restoration began, and I spent every spare moment on site, working with contractors, ensuring every detail matched my vision. I visited my father at the rehabilitation facility. He'd been there almost 4 months, looked healthier than I'd seen him in years. Sober, clear-eyed, genuinely remorseful. You look different, he said when I sat across from him in the visiting room. Older. A lot's happened. I heard. Dominic sends reports. He looked down at his hands. I destroyed your life, Elena. Sold you to pay for my mistakes. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I forgive you, I said, surprising myself. But that doesn't mean things go back to how they were. You hurt me, sold Mom's apartment, made choices that put me in danger. I can forgive that, but I can't forget it. I understand. When you get out, Dominic will help you find work, get settled somewhere. But we need distance, at least for a while. He nodded, tears in his eyes. You're stronger than I ever was. I had to be. The conversation wasn't healing exactly, but it was closure, a way to move forward without the weight of unresolved anger. 2 months after the warehouse incident, the theater restoration was nearly complete. The grand reopening gala was scheduled for the following week. Dominic insisted on being involved in every detail, despite technically having no architectural knowledge. You're micromanaging, I told him, as he questioned the contractor about stage lighting. I'm invested in the project. You're being annoying. He pulled me aside, away from the workers. I want this to be perfect for you. This is your vision, your triumph. I just want to support it. You are supporting it. You funded it, believed in me, gave me this opportunity. That's enough. The gala was stunning. The theater gleamed with restored Art Deco glory. Every surface polished, every detail perfect. Hundreds of Boston's elite attended, including city council members, preservationists, architectural critics. I gave a speech about the importance of historic preservation, about honoring the past while building the future. Dominic stood in the front row, pride evident on his face. Afterward, a woman from American Associates approached me. Ms. Sterling, that was an impressive presentation. Your work here is remarkable for someone so early in their career. Thank you. We're a firm specializing in historic restoration. We'd love to discuss employment opportunities once you graduate. Would you be interested? I stared at her, barely processing. You're offering me a job? Pending graduation, yes. Your portfolio speaks for itself. I agreed, gave her my contact information, floated through the rest of the evening in a daze. You're going to be an actual architect, Dominic said on the drive home. With an actual career. Is that weird? The wife of, well, you, having a normal job? It's perfect. It's you choosing your own path instead of being defined by me. He took my hand. I'm proud of you. That night, wrapped in his arms, I felt something I hadn't felt since my mother died. Hope. Real hope for a future that wasn't just surviving, but actually living. I have something to tell you, Dominic said, pulling an envelope from the nightstand. What is it? Open it. Inside were legal documents, our marriage contract, and beneath it, divorce papers. Already signed by him, undated. I don't understand, I whispered. You're free, Elena. The debt was forgiven 2 months ago. You can leave whenever you want. No penalties, no consequences. I'm not holding you here anymore. But the 5-year contract is void if you want it to be. I'm not going to trap you in this marriage. If you stay, it has to be because you choose to, not because you're obligated to. I looked at the papers, at the signature that would end this arrangement, then at Dominic's face. The vulnerability there, the fear that I might actually leave. I tore the divorce papers in half. I'm staying, not because of contracts or obligations, because I love you, because this is where I want to be. He kissed me then, and it felt like the beginning of something real. Not a forced arrangement or a business deal, but an actual marriage, an actual future. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. By choice. 3 months of peace felt like a lifetime, and an instant simultaneously. We fell into rhythms that felt domestic, real. Morning coffee together, discussions about my coursework, and his legitimate business ventures. Evenings where we'd cook dinner or order takeout and pretend we were a normal couple. But normal doesn't last in this world. The first sign came when Dominic's restaurant in the North End burned down. Arson, investigators said. Professional job. No evidence, but everyone knew who was behind it. Adrian's back, Vincent confirmed during an emergency meeting. He's recovered, recruited new allies from New York, and he's hitting our legitimate businesses now. Why? I asked from where I sat beside Dominic. I'd started attending these meetings, learning the business from the inside. Because he can't touch us directly anymore. Security's too tight. So he's bleeding us financially, hoping to force mistakes. Over the next 2 weeks, 3 more properties were hit. A warehouse in Southie invaded and ransacked. A shipping container at the harbor mysteriously going missing. Small hits, but they added up. We need to respond, one of Dominic's men argued. Show strength. No. I surprised everyone by speaking up. That's what he wants. Direct retaliation means war, which means chaos, which means federal attention. Adrian's trying to bait us. Dominic looked at me with approval. She's right. We need to be smarter. Then what do? Vincent asked. I thought about the gala, about the connections I'd made, the world I'd been observing. We undermine his support. Adrian's power comes from his alliances, right? What if we make those alliances unstable? How? By showing his allies that he's reckless, that following him leads to disaster. I pulled up information on my tablet. Michael Torres, one of Adrian's main supporters. He's married to Catherine Torres, who sits on 3 charity boards with me. You want to use charity work for intelligence? Sophia looked impressed. I want to plant seeds of doubt. If Catherine hears that Adrian's becoming unpredictable, that he's making risky moves that could bring down everyone associated with him, she'll tell her husband. And Michael will start questioning his loyalty. It was manipulation, cold calculation, exactly the kind of thing I would have been horrified by 6 months ago. Now, it felt necessary. It could work, Dominic said slowly. But it puts you in Adrian's line of sight again. I'm already in his line of sight. Might as well make it count. The plan went into motion. I attended a charity luncheon at the Four Seasons, making sure to sit near Catherine Torres. The conversation started innocently enough, discussion of upcoming fundraisers and committee meetings. Then I carefully, subtly, mentioned concerns about business stability. Dominic's been so cautious lately, I said, ever since Adrian Volkov started making moves. It's smart, really. Better to be careful than reckless. Catherine's expression shifted slightly. Reckless how? Oh, I shouldn't speculate. It's just some of Adrian's recent actions seem impulsive, burning bridges before securing new ground. That sort of thing. I sipped my wine. I'm sure Michael keeps you informed about these matters. He mentions things occasionally. She was hooked now. Curiosity overriding discretion. Has Dominic heard something specific? Just concerns about Adrian overextending, taking risks that could expose everyone in his network. I shrugged, but I'm sure it's fine. Michael's always been smart about these things. I planted similar seeds with 2 other wives over the next week. Careful suggestions, nothing concrete, just enough doubt to fester. It worked faster than expected. Vincent came to dinner a week later with news. Michael Torres pulled out of Adrian's coalition, took 3 other smaller operators with him. Adrian's furious. Good, Dominic said. He's desperate and angry. That makes him sloppy. But desperate and angry also made him dangerous. The threat came as a text message to my phone. Anonymous number, but the message was clear. Photos of me at the Boston Architectural College, at coffee shops, walking through campus, always alone despite my security. He's watching you, Dominic said, jaw tight, letting us know he can reach you whenever he wants. Then we lock her down, Vincent argued. Keep her in the house until we've dealt with Adrian. No. I stood firm. That's letting him win. Showing weakness. Elena, if I hide, it proves he can control us. I keep living my life, but we increase security. Make it invisible but overwhelming. He wants to scare me into becoming a prisoner. I won't give him that. Dominic looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. 6 guards. Rotations every 4 hours. Armored vehicle. And you don't go anywhere without checking in first. Deal. The next week was tense. Every shadow felt threatening. Every unexpected sound made me jump. But I went to class, worked on my thesis project, maintained normalcy even as fear gnawed at my edges. Sophia met me for lunch in a cafe on Newberry Street. both of us surrounded by security trying to look casual. "This is insane," she said, stirring her coffee. "Living like this, always waiting for something bad to happen. Is it worth it?" I asked. "All of this danger for love?" She smiled sadly. "I used to think love was the stupidest reason to stay in this life. Then I met James." "Who's James?" "My fiancé. I haven't announced it yet, but..." She held up her left hand, showing a modest diamond ring. "He's a tech entrepreneur. Completely legitimate, completely outside this world. And I'm terrified that loving him will get him killed." "Sophia, that's amazing. When did this happen?" 2 months ago. "You actually introduced us at the theater gala." She looked down at her ring. "He has no idea what my family really is. I've kept him separate from everything. But eventually, he'll figure it out. And then I'll have to decide if I'm willing to risk his life for my happiness. What will you choose?" "I think I'll choose him, because life without him feels pointless." She met my eyes. "That's how you feel about Dominic, isn't it?" "Yes, even knowing the risks, even understanding what this life means. I can't imagine being without him. Then we're both idiots in love." She raised her coffee cup. "To making terrible decisions for the right reasons." I clinked my cup against hers, laughing despite everything. That evening, Vincent brought news that changed everything. We found Adrian. He's hiding in a warehouse near Charlestown Navy Yard. Different location from before, but similar setup. My source says he's planning to leave Boston by the end of the week. "Then we move now," Dominic said. "Tonight, before he can disappear again." "Wait." I grabbed his arm. "If we let him leave, doesn't this end?" He goes, "We're safe. No more attacks. He'll come back eventually. Or send someone else. This only ends one way, Elena." I knew what he meant. This ended with Adrian dead. "Let me see the warehouse plans," I said quietly. We spent 2 hours going over strategy. The location was Castle Island, South Boston, an abandoned pier that jutted into the harbor. Adrian had chosen well. Defensible position, multiple escape routes by water. "It's a trap," I said, studying the blueprints. "He wants you to come. He's prepared for an assault. So we don't give him what he expects," Dominic replied. "We'll use the approach you suggested before. Block obvious exits, force him into a controlled position. And if something goes wrong..." He cupped my face in his hands. "Then you stay safe. That's all that matters." "No." I held his wrists, keeping his hands against my face. "We both stay safe. You come back to me. Promise." "I promise." The operation was scheduled for midnight. Dominic spent the evening going over final preparations while I tried not to fall apart. Sophia stayed with me, both of us pretending we weren't terrified. "He's done this 100 times, she reminded me. "He knows what he's doing. That doesn't make it less scary." At 11:30, Dominic came to say goodbye. He held me for a long moment, neither of us speaking. "Come back," I whispered into his chest. "Always." He pulled back, handing me an envelope. "Open this just open it if you need to." Then he was gone, and I was left with Sophia and security and the slowly ticking clock. 15 minutes passed, 30, 45. Then Vincent's radio crackled. "We're in position. Radio silence from here." Another 15 minutes of nothing. Then, static. Shouts, gunfire, silence. "Something's wrong," I said, standing. "It's been too long. Elena, we need to wait." An explosion lit up the night sky toward South Boston. Bigger than before, bright enough to see from Beacon Hill. I ran for the door. Sophia and security tried to stop me, but I fought my way to the car. "Castle Island," I ordered the driver. Now, the drive took 10 minutes that felt like hours. As we got closer, I could see smoke rising from the pier. Fire trucks were already responding, sirens wailing. We pulled up to the perimeter. Police were setting up barriers, but I ducked under them, running toward the burning warehouse. "Ma'am, you can't..." An officer tried to stop me. "My husband is in there." Then I saw him. Dominic, limping away from the flames, supported by 2 of his men. Blood on his face, clothes torn, but alive. Relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. He saw me, and his expression shifted from pain to anger. What are you doing here? You were supposed to stay home. You were supposed to stay safe. I closed the distance, checking him for injuries. What happened? Adrian. He detonated explosives. Suicide play. Took half his own men with him. Dominic coughed, smoke inhalation making his voice rough. He's dead. It's over. Over. The word felt impossible. You're sure? Vincent confirmed the body. Adrian Volkov is dead. I held him as emergency services arrived, as Vincent coordinated explanations for the police. As the pier burned behind us, it was over. The war, the threat, the constant fear. We could finally breathe. The weeks after Adrian's death felt surreal. Peace negotiations with other Boston organizations happened quickly. Everyone was tired of war, ready for stability. Dominic officially transferred all remaining criminal operations to Vincent, keeping only his legitimate businesses: real estate, restaurants, the theater, investment properties. It's strange, he said one morning over coffee. I've spent 13 years building this empire, and now I'm walking away from half of it. Regrets? I asked. None. I have something better now. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I have you. I have a future that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder constantly. Life normalized in ways I hadn't imagined possible. I finished my semester with top marks despite everything. The job offer from Merrick and Associates was formalized with a contract to start after graduation. Sophia's relationship with James became public, and he took the revelation of her family business surprisingly well. I'm not in that world, Sophia explained to him over dinner one night at our house. Neither is Dominic anymore. It's Vincent's operation now. James, a genuinely kind man with no criminal connections whatsoever, seemed relieved. So I don't have to worry about accidentally offending someone and ending up in the harbor? Not from us, Dominic assured him with a slight smile. 2 months after Adrian's death, I graduated from the Boston Architectural College. Dominic, Sophia, Vincent, and even Lydia attended the ceremony. My father sent a card from his new apartment in Providence, where he'd moved after rehab. We'd spoken twice since he left the facility. Short, careful conversations that acknowledged our shared history without pretending everything was fixed. I'm proud of you, the card read. You've built a better life than I ever gave you. Love, Dad. It was enough. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but acknowledgement. A starting point. The celebration dinner that night was at one of Dominic's restaurants, a small Italian place in the North End that had been rebuilt after Adrian's arson. Just family. Dominic, Sophia, James, Vincent, Lydia, and her boyfriend Tyler. To Elena, Dominic raised his glass. The most talented architect I know, and the strongest woman I've ever met. I'm the only architect you know, I pointed out. Still counts. We laughed, ate too much pasta, drank wine, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. No threat lurking, no fear poisoning the moment. Just people I cared about celebrating something good. Later that night in bed, Dominic pulled me close. I have a surprise for you, he said. Another one? You already funded my entire education and gave me a historic theater. This is different. He handed me an envelope, similar to the one with the divorce papers months ago. Inside were tickets. 2 first-class tickets to Venice, Italy. We're going to Italy, I breathed. 2 weeks. No work, no obligations, just us. I've been planning it for months. He kissed my temple. You've never left the country. I want to show you the world. Dominic, this is... Don't say too much. Say yes. Yes. Absolutely yes. Venice was a dream. We stayed in a converted palazzo overlooking the Grand Canal, spent days wandering through narrow streets and ancient churches. Dominic showed me architecture I'd only seen in textbooks. Byzantine mosaics, Gothic palaces, Renaissance bridges. On our 5th day, during a gondola ride at sunset, he went quiet. I'd learned to read his silences, and this one felt weighted with something important. What are you thinking? I asked. That I want to do this right. He shifted in the gondola, pulling out a small box. Elena, I know we're already married, but that wasn't real. That was a contract, a business arrangement. This is me asking you, genuinely asking, to build a life with me. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Inside the box was a ring. Not the one from our contract wedding, but something he'd clearly chosen himself. Simple, elegant, with a single diamond that caught the setting sun. "Marry me again," he said. For real this time. For love. I was crying before I could answer. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. The ceremony happened 3 days later in a small church near San Marco Square. Just us, Sophia and James, who'd flown out as witnesses, and a local priest who barely spoke English but understood love in any language. I wore a simple white dress bought from a boutique that morning. Dominic wore a navy suit that made his eyes impossibly blue. When he said his vows, his voice cracked with emotion I'd never heard from him before. "I promise to protect you, cherish you, and never take for granted that you chose this life with me. You've made me believe in futures worth fighting for." My own vows were simpler. I promise to love you through everything. The good, the complicated, and whatever comes next. You're my home. When we kissed, it felt like beginning something entirely new. The rest of the honeymoon passed in a blur of perfect moments. Rome's ancient ruins, Florence's art museums, the Amalfi Coast's cliffside villages. We talked about plans, where to live long-term, whether to expand Dominic's legitimate business empire, my career trajectory at Merrick & Associates. "I want kids eventually," I admitted one night overlooking the Mediterranean. "Is that something you want?" "I never thought I'd live long enough to have children," he said honestly. "But with you? Yes. I want everything with you." We returned to Boston 6 months into our marriage, tanned and rested, and more in love than I'd thought possible. Work started at Merrick & Associates, and I immediately loved it. Real projects, historic buildings, clients who valued preservation. My first solo project was a Victorian mansion in Cambridge that needed complete structural restoration. Dominic attended every presentation I gave to the firm's partners, his pride evident even when he didn't fully understand the technical aspects. "You're brilliant," he'd say afterward. "I understood maybe 30% of that, but you were brilliant." Life fell into comfortable patterns. Morning coffee, commutes to our respective offices, evenings cooking together or meeting friends for dinner. Sophia and James announced their engagement officially, planning a wedding for the following spring. Vincent started dating someone, a lawyer named Rachel, who somehow didn't mind his past. 8 months after our Venice wedding, I started feeling off, tired constantly, nauseous in the mornings, emotional over nothing. I ignored it for 2 weeks before Sophia cornered me at lunch. "You're pregnant," she said matter-of-factly. "I am not. You ordered a salad. You never order salads. And you're glowing, but also look exhausted. Trust me, I know the signs." I took a test that afternoon in my office bathroom at Merrick & Associates. 3 minutes that felt like hours. Positive. I stared at that little plus sign, trying to process what it meant. A baby. Dominic's baby. A whole new life we'd created together. That evening, I made Dominic's favorite meal. Chicken marsala with roasted vegetables. He noticed immediately something was different. "What's going on?" he asked. "You're being weird." "I'm always weird. Weirder than usual." He set down his fork. "Elena, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Something's actually very right." I took a breath. "I'm pregnant." The fork clattered onto his plate. He stared at me, expression cycling through shock, confusion, hope, joy. We're... He stood, crossed to where I sat, pulled me into his arms. "We're having a baby? We're having a baby." He held me for a long moment, and when he pulled back, there were tears in his eyes. "A family. A real family. Are you happy?" Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed me, gentle and reverent. "You've given me everything I never knew I wanted." The pregnancy was smooth. Morning sickness that lasted 3 months. Constant exhaustion, but nothing concerning. Dominic was impossibly attentive, researching everything about pregnancy and babies, baby-proofing the house months too early. Sophia announced her own pregnancy a month after mine. She and James had married quietly at City Hall, deciding they couldn't wait for the big wedding. "We're going to raise cousins together," she said, both of us sitting in the newly renovated theater watching rehearsals. Our kids will grow up in peace, not war. Imagine that, I said. Normal childhoods, thanks to you. If you hadn't pushed Dominic toward legitimacy, if you hadn't been brave enough to change everything, we'd still be living in that violent world. I didn't do it alone. No. But you started it. 7 months into my pregnancy, we held the baby shower at the mansion. Friends from Merrick and Associates, Lydia and Tyler, Sophia and James, Vincent and Rachel. Even my father made the trip from Providence. He looked older, grayer, but genuinely sober. When he congratulated me, there was real pride in his eyes. You've built something beautiful, he said, despite everything I put you through. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you deserved. You can be the grandfather my child deserves, I offered. If you want to be. I'd like that very much. It wasn't complete healing, but it was progress. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in April. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with Dominic's dark hair and my green eyes. We named her Grace, after my mother. Dominic held her with a gentleness I'd never seen in him. This powerful man reduced to tears by a tiny infant. Hello, Grace, he whispered. I'm your father, and I promise you'll never know the violence I knew. You'll grow up safe, loved, free to become whoever you want to be. I watched him with our daughter, and felt my heart expand beyond what I thought possible. That evening, just the 3 of us in the hospital room, Dominic sat beside my bed holding Grace while I recovered. Do you remember the first time we met? He asked quietly. You walked into my office desperate and terrified, offering to sell yourself to save your father. Not my proudest moment. Mine either. I saw an opportunity, a solution to my problems. I didn't see you as a person, just a tool. He looked at Grace, then at me. Now I can't imagine life without you. You saved me in ways I didn't know I needed saving. We saved each other. Outside the window, Boston glowed in the spring night. The theater marquee was visible from here, lit up and advertising a new production. The building I'd restored, the dream I'd made real. Everything that had started as a forced arrangement, a desperate deal made out of fear and obligation, had transformed into something genuine, something worth fighting for. I looked at my husband holding our daughter, at the life we'd built from impossible circumstances, and realized that sometimes the best futures are the ones we never planned for. What are you thinking? Dominic asked. That we're going to be okay, I said. All of us. And for the first time since this all began, I completely believed it.